Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today I am doing my top shelf video, my best of in every category, however you want to say it. I'm going to go through each and every makeup category, put it on my face, and talk about why it's my favorite. I think one thing that is really important, and I do always mention this about beauty products in general, is that these days there are not a lot of objectively bad products. So a lot of it really comes down to just our personal preferences and what works best for us, whether that be preferences in formula, colors. Some people like liquid more than powder and vice versa. So these are a lot of very nuanced preferences involved in my selection, but that's all it is. My personal selection based on my skin type, my sensitivities, and everything that goes into me liking a product. So, I won't get too in the weeds when it comes to that. I'll just start by stating what my personal preferences are and my skin type. So I have 40-year-old aging, sensitive, very, very dry skin. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the driest, my skin's a 20 at least because it is just off the chart dry. That is because I am on very high dose tretinoin. Part of that is to keep my acne in check. I did recently reduce my level of tretinoin, hoping that it would make my skin a little bit less dry and less sensitive. And going on 4 months of being on a lower dose, and I have to say, my skin is no less dry and my sensitivities have not changed at all, but my pimples have increased. So I will be going back up in dose just because there's no benefit for me to reduce it and have my acne be less controlled, because right now is particularly bad. As you can see, I guess I am lucky in that my pimples really stay on my chin, like knock on wood. I would be more upset if they were all over my face, but my chin is pretty bad and it definitely makes putting makeup there difficult. As a result of my skin being so dry, basically every product here is made for dry skin. I would say except for the eyeshadow, it's all very geared towards glowy skin, hydrated skin, that kind of thing. And aside from that, I guess my other preference would be color, and I am neutral, very neutral, a little bit cool leaning. So my color preferences are going to reflect that to some extent, but I don't think that there are any really hard rules around that. Just in terms of complexion products, a lot of time I might pick things that possibly tend to cater to them more. So without further ado, I'm going to start with eyeshadow. Now, I will say I am certainly not the best at putting makeup on camera. Eyeshadow is the hardest. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go in another room where I can see better and I'm going to do my eyeshadow there, and then I'm going to come back and talk through everything else. But I will say eyeshadow is my favorite makeup. So I have an enormous eyeshadow collection. Me talking about what my absolute favorite is has to do with what I use the most. So what is appropriate in a large number of situations, what I'm comfortable in, what I feel the prettiest in, and what I'm the most excited to use. So that's not to say that any of my other palettes are less loved. They just didn't really fit the bill when it came to top of the top. So for that, I'm going to say it has to be my Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. I think that this is a lot of people's favorites. What I love so much about it is my ability to use this to set up looks. So prior to this, I had palettes similar, like the Viseart Neutral Mattes and that kind of thing, but there's something about the color story of this that I just find a little bit more flattering. I think the fact that there are so many gray tones that I frankly wasn't that used to using on a day-to-day basis, that I've just really felt like over time seeing myself in these colors, I really think they are more flattering. That's just a personal thing. I do think that somebody with maybe a warmer skin tone might prefer the Viseart mattes or even the Natasha Denona Golden palette. For me, this is really my ideal neutral palette, and you know, I have hit actual pan in this, which, you know, that never happens for me with any of my eyeshadow palettes. So that's a big deal. That is a testament to how much I use this. And I pair that with, I would say arguably my favorite eyeshadow brand is Glaminatrix, because I love their formula so much. The only reason like my Sugar and Spice palette isn't my #1 is because these mattes just aren't my ideal everyday neutral matte colors. So because of that, it didn't rank #1, but it's my favorite shimmer, I guess, if I had to pick one, would be Nutmeg. And you can buy that as a single. So my Glaminatrix, here's some of my other Glaminatrix singles. They make my favorite shimmery eyeshadow. Even, dare I say, I like them more than Pat McGrath. And Pat McGrath was previously my favorite shimmer formula in her special shades in the motherships, pretty much exclusively. But I never thought anything would top those. And I guess as toppers, they still would probably be my favorite. But my favorite shimmer overall is Glaminatrix, and because of that, today I'm going to use my Natasha Denona to set my look up, and then I'm going to use my Glaminatrix singles and finish up with liner and lashes. I guess really quick, I'll also talk about my favorite liner, probably this Urban Decay 24/7 inks. I love the handle on this. I used to like the KVD tattoo liner, but this just edges it out a little bit because of the component and the fact that this lasted forever. I did finally run out of it, but it lasted a really long time, so I felt like it was worth the money. My #2 liner is this Tom Ford liner. This I got at the cosmetic company store. I would never pay full price. So when I run out of this, I'll be going back to Pat McGrath, but I do have to say it is a really nice eyeliner. My favorite for my waterline is this from Makeup Forever, the Artist Color Pencil. I have this in Boundless Bisque. I use this every day. It's my absolute favorite. My favorite eyeshadow brushes are these from BK Beauty, the Angie Hot and Flashy. These brushes, it's just because of my eye shape and how I do makeup, how I learned how to do eye makeup. I don't think there's anything that special about them. They're just what I'm more comfortable using. The two brushes that I do think are somewhat indispensable are my Singe Beauty EO1 and EO4, especially the EO1 because of its pointed tip. And this gets into shimmer like nothing I've ever seen. This just picks up shimmer in an incredible way. I don't need any glitter glue or nothing. I don't even really need a tacky base. This just does such a good job. This is the only thing that rivals my finger. And unlike my finger, I can get it into my inner corner. So this is probably the only brush in my entire collection that I would go out and buy if I lost my current brushes. Like, it's the only one that I really feel like I don't have anything just as good. The other thing as it comes to eyes is mascara. So I don't really have a mascara right now that I love. I used to love the Bite Beauty mascara. That was my holy grail. I haven't really found a good replacement for it. I like the Tower 28, but I don't think it lasts that long. I think it's at its best for only a few weeks, and I don't love that. I've tried the Gwen Stefani Can't Stop Staring, you know, I have a little sample of this. I like it, so it's the one I'm using every day for right now, but I don't really think it's anything that special. When it comes to lashes, my favorite lash brand for my eye shape is the Bright Lashes Half Lashes. I like every single one. I usually buy the set that comes with every single half lash because I use them almost every day. If I had to pick one, I guess it would be Whisper, because these are so short that I can actually wear sunglasses with them, and that means a lot to me living in Florida. I hate the feeling of my lashes being too long that my sunglasses, because I have pretty tight to my face sunglasses. I feel like I need that because I need it to really keep the light out. I have super, super sensitive eyes. So I don't think that everybody would have this issue, but for me it's an issue. So the Whisper lashes I can wear and I don't have any glasses interaction, and they definitely are my favorite. I did forget to mention my primer. So for my face primer, my favorite is still the Bobbi Brown Face Base. Unfortunately, I haven't really been able to find this on sale recently. I usually am able to get it somewhere at 50% off. So in the meantime, I've been using the Embryolisse, and I don't really like this as much. What I like so much about this is it's hydrating and it lays flat. It's not super sticky, doesn't interact negatively with anything that I put on top. It's just sort of a fail-safe. It really is my favorite. I think this one works almost as good, except on very rare occasions. I have had some pilling, so because of that, it's never going to be my favorite, but it's a good number 2. For my eyes, I like primers that just even my eyelid out and don't really add too much tack, because I like to be able to blend on top easily, and I don't really have issues with creasing or oily lids or anything like that, so I don't need to combat that. I'm really just looking to even my skin tone. So for that, I actually like a combination. I like this MAC paint pot. I have it in Painterly. I just bought another one. This was 50% off at Macy's. So I've had this for a really long time and it's starting to dry out. So because of that, I'm going to replace it. And if it wasn't so dry, I wouldn't use both. But because it is, this is several years old. It took a long time for it to get that way. But now I also use the Nars concealer in light 2.5. This is also good for acne coverage, so I do use it for that as well. But I find that either one of these are great. I also really like the Sigma primer. What I like about this is that it's in a stick form, so I can apply it easily and I don't have to use my fingers, which I do appreciate. Plus I can get in the inner corner without too much fuss. All right, so I think that's everything. I am primed and ready to go, so I'm going to go do my eyes and then I'll be back to talk about my face makeup. All right, so I'm back and I'm going to insert some photos of swatches of the shades that I chose to use today, and this certainly isn't the most exciting look, but it's my favorite, like, everyday glam. And, I could go on for hours about all of the different eyeshadows that I like, but these are my most used, tried and true, go-to, all-around feel-good look. So next up, I should say, I also like to prime my lips while I'm doing the rest of my makeup, and for that, my favorite is the Lawless Forget the Filler. I use whatever. I don't really care if it's the gloss or the mask, but the lip mask is slightly less sticky, so because of that, it's my preference. I always get these for 50% off at GMA deals. There's no way to tell ahead of time when they're going to be on there, but they've been on there a few times already in the past year, so I absolutely keep an eye out for that because it's just my favorite for hydrating my lips. I don't think it makes a noticeable difference in fullness, like, at all, but I do think it does a good job hydrating them and getting inside the nooks and crannies. So, in a sea of way too many lip products, I think this for $11 is a good one. All right, so next up is complexion. And I will say this is the category that I feel the most strongly about when it comes to Holy Grail products. Because like I said, I have such problematic dry skin that I have really kissed a lot of frogs in order to get my 2 top favorite foundations and concealers. That and powder are probably the most temperamental. When it comes to blush and highlighter, like, similar to eyeshadow, it's like how I'm feeling that day. I don't really have very strong opinions on those categories. But foundation, I absolutely do. My number 1 favorite foundation is the number 1 de Chanel. This is an Ulta exclusive, and I always save my points for Chanel. Like, for years, I was using my Ulta points without really understanding the point system and how to get the most for my money. I really have to credit Alice in the Rabbit Hole, who is here on YouTube, for teaching me all about Ulta. the sales, how to use the points to get the most for your money, and all of that. She really informed me, and since then, I've been able to get the entire lineup of Olaplex. So every single number for free. I've been able to buy 4 of these Chanel foundations just with points, and I think I got a new face device. All because I finally figured out how to use those points to the biggest advantage. And the TLDR is just wait till you get 2,000 points. Just never spend before that, because it's not as simple as 1 point equals $1. It really changes the more points you have, and at 2,000 increments is where you get the most for your money. And because of that, I don't mind buying 2. I will say I don't have a great shade in Chanel, so I do have to buy 2, and that definitely pisses me off, but it also lasts twice as long, so I'm like, it's not the end of the world. I mix shade B20 and B30, and because I always finish B30 first, I definitely think I use a little bit more B30 than B20, but needless to say, those two combined give me a decent shade match. I'm not sure it's like the best I've ever had, but it's okay. It's better than the Nars. So my second favorite foundation is the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation, and every Sephora sale I buy 1 or 2 of these and I just keep mixing them. I usually feel like I end up looking a little bit too dark and a little bit too yellow in Nars. That's not my favorite, but I will admit that I put up with it because I like the formula so much. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna do 2 pumps of B30, 1.5 pumps of B, and I'm gonna use my Yummy base brush. This is my favorite foundation brush, but I don't feel that strongly about really any of the rest of my brushes. I also like the It Cosmetics brush, and I like the VK101 as well. Obviously, I go on at length in my brush video about all of my favorite brushes, and I also go on at length about all of the other products in this video as well. Still really struggling to try to talk while I'm doing my makeup. I'm not very good at that. All right, so for concealer, my favorite concealer has always been the Kosas, but I have yet to find a color in it that I feel like is my absolute favorite. I do think they've expanded their shade range, so I should really look again. But in the meantime, I have a shade that's a little bit too light in the Kosas, so I have 2.3N. It's okay, but I don't try to super brighten my under eyes because I feel like that draws attention to them, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. So I mix it with the Kulfi. I also really like the Kulfi. The only reason I don't use it on its own is because it's a little bit too shiny, and that's just not my favorite. I feel like I really look for a concealer that's hydrating but not shiny. So when I mix these two, I feel like I get a good finish. The color is better and the finish is a little bit more what I'm looking for. And I forgot to say I have the Kulfi in shade Cocoa Crush. And that's a little bit too deep, but it is a little bit cooler. And I feel like the shades that I've tried in the Kosas all pull very yellow. So I also, probably my second favorite to those two is the Natasha Denona. I have this in N4, and I've really had a good time with that. I originally didn't buy it because, I don't know, I genuinely thought it was going to be a little bit on the creasy side because of a lot of reviews that I saw, quite frankly. And then finally, during one of the Natasha Denona sales, I decided on a whim to pick it up, and I've really been quite happy with it. It's not quite as easygoing when it comes to creases as these two, but it's a really good shade match and it really doesn't crease that much more. I am going to buff this in with my Kosas sponge. I am not particular about sponges. I like Beauty Blender, but I also like the Paw Paw sponges. I just picked this up because of the shape. It's a little bit pointier, and I like that for getting in some of my nooks and crannies. To do a better job, I'm gonna go do this in a mirror where I can see better, but I will be right back. All right, so looking in a mirror where I had more light, I realized that I do need to go back over some of my blemishes, which I'll do at the end with my Nars concealer. I should have mentioned that when it comes to complexion products also, the coverage level that I'm looking for, I really want something that's at least medium coverage. If it's too light, it doesn't do enough for evening my skin tone. I have so many post-acne inflammatory marks that are red and brown. I have melasma on my forehead. I have under eye circles. Like, I have stuff that I need coverage for. So even though I sort of shy away from the full coverage only because I feel like that doesn't look the best on texture, I definitely want something that's going to do a decent job. And the Chanel is light to medium. I would say it's probably ever so slightly less coverage than the Nars. So the Nars being my more everyday foundation, that does do a little bit better job covering my acne. Next up, I'm going to apply some contour. I really love the Westman Atelier Face Trace Contour Stick. I buy the minis. I don't really feel the need to buy the full sizes because I use such a small amount. My second favorite contour actually is probably the Sephora collection, the powder. I've just had a really good time with that. I have it in 02 light to medium, and it's just easy. If I was doing an all powder look, I would reach for that, but because I'm using more cream products today, and I don't know, I guess I prefer this slightly. I do like that one as well. Next, I'm going in with my Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow. I really like this contour. It's more of a cross between a contour and a bronzer, but it's very light and very neutral. And I appreciate that. I really don't like bronzers that pull orange. Probably the worst look for me. But anything too warm just isn't that flattering. And I like to put this on in between contour and bronzer because it sort of helps marry the two together and make it so there's no streaks anywhere. Now I like to add just a touch of color. So my favorite bronzer of the moment is the Pat McGrath Nude Honey. And I have that in one of these holiday palettes that come with a blush and a highlighter. I will say I don't love the blush in this, Naked Peony, but Opal Allure is the highlighter and I use that a ton. It's probably my favorite everyday highlight. It has a little bit of a pink tinge to it and that sort of helps it blend in better with my blush and not look streaky. And when it comes to highlighter, I use so many glowy products that I don't necessarily need a highlighter, but when I do use one, I certainly want it to blend in with everything else as seamlessly as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this one today. All right, and now it's time for blush. I don't have a favorite blush. I have to be really honest here. I have several blushes that I like equally. So I love the Hourglass blushes, but I really only have them in palettes, and I have to be honest, my blush brush doesn't do the best job picking up individual colors in my little Hourglass palettes. So I tend to use those more for the ambient lighting powders, which I know is not something that most people use those palettes for. Another favorite blush of mine is this RMS formula. These are the Hydra Dimension blushes. My favorite is Crystal Slipper because it's very neutral, and then I also really like Bohemian Girl. Probably my next favorite is this from MAC, the Go Play blushes. These are always on sale somewhere. I always find them for 50% off. Mine's disgusting because it's like a putty material, but Blush Please is my favorite color in that. And then my newest favorite is this from Lawless. I also got this for 50% off. This is in shade Angel. And I love this one because it just sort of helps melt everything together. So for that reason, I like to use a cream blush. I don't have the best luck with liquid blushes that I've had in my collection, but I am really looking forward to trying the Hourglass one. I'm buying that during the next Sephora sale, 100%. I should say more often than not, I'm also using two blushes, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that today. I'm gonna use the Lawless first. And then I'm gonna go on top of that with a little bit of Crystal Slipper. All right, now I powder my under eye, and for that, my favorite powder is the Ambient Lighting and Dim Light. I like this because it's not too brightening. Again, I feel like putting a really brightening powder under my eyes draws more attention to that area, and my goal is to have it disappear. I really want it to just blend into the rest of my face. So dim light being a little bit deeper and not drying. The key word being not drying. You know, I've also tried the Givenchy powder that has a sort of pink hue to it. I do okay with that. That one's not too extreme. But if I was choosing between the two, I'm gonna pick dim light every time. And you know, you can buy this in a single and a mini. You certainly don't need to buy an entire palette to get that shade. Then I'm gonna go on top of everything with my favorite face powder, which is the Kosas. I have been through several of these. I think my favorite shade is definitely Feathery, and I've tried lighter and deeper shades, and I think Feathery is just probably my best. I don't really need a ton of powder. I mostly use it to take down the shine on my texture. Like, I try to bring back shine strategically in certain places, but overall, especially my chin, I like to hide that if I can. All right, so now I think we're at lipstick. I have a bunch of lipsticks that I like, but the one that I really go to for every day is these MAC. I have a satin and I have a shine, and I really like the combination of both. I have Cosmo and Thanks It's MAC. So I put Cosmo on first, top it off. For me, it really, it adds shine, but it also makes the color a little bit better. This is more beigey and this is more pinky. I feel like this is a little bit too pink on me. Cosmo on its own. I have a really hard time finding good lip colors for myself. I have to say, I don't have a single lipstick and I have a lot, as is evident in my lipstick video. I have never come across one shade other than, I guess, maybe Charlotte Tilbury Wedding Bells is my closest really favorite shade, but genuinely, I really struggle there and I so often end up combining two. So that's it for that. And then I'm going to finish off with my favorite finishing spray, which is the Hourglass Veil. I have tried several. I tried the Nars Light Reflecting and I feel like it's not that hydrating. And what I like about the Veil is that it adds just a little bit of hydration without drying me out, and I do feel like it sets my makeup, whereas most of my other sprays that are similar are just not that hydrating, except for MAC Fix Plus, which I will say, the only reason that's not in this video is because I have the old pump and I hate that pump so much that I'm waiting to finish this one so I can pour it into this bottle, because the pump on this is fabulous. It's thin, it doesn't spit, and I'm so glad that they changed that, because the next time I buy Fix Plus, I'm going to be much happier to use that. Okay, and that is everything. So this is the conclusion of my best of everything video. This will finish off my series going through every section in my makeup collection and talking about everything I've tried and why my personal favorites are what they are. I really hope this was useful. Like I said, you know, a lot of these are somewhat flexible, but really when it comes down to complexion, those are the things that have not changed for several years. Like, I'm sort of a go with the wind on blush, but I've been trying foundations for years, and these are still my top two. Same with the concealer. So those are the products that I think are more dependent on my personal preferences, and everything else can sort of change year to year, but I do plan on doing this definitely annually. So these are all of my holy grails so far in 2024. I plan on doing another video about everything I bought this summer. When the summer started, I was under the false impression that I was not going to be trying a lot of things. I thought, this is the slow season, this is where I can save my money for fall, and that didn't really work out the way I had hoped. I ended up buying a lot more than I thought I would because a lot of brands had a ton of sales, and that's definitely the direction that we're trending in. There seems to be a sale every other week, but it certainly wasn't all bad. I certainly did come across some things that I do think were actually worth it. So sometime next week, or possibly the week after, but maybe next week, I'm going to do that video. And then I fear to say we are going to be in fall. I'm hoping that once we're actually in fall, I have some time to make more videos, because It's been very difficult for me to have time in the house by myself to do any of this summer, but hopefully that'll change too as well. And I forgot brows. I always forget brows in these videos. I never forget them when I'm doing my makeup in my bathroom, ever. But for some reason, when the camera's rolling, it just absolutely leaves my brain. The Benefit Pomade is my favorite brow product. I like this because I don't like to fuss. I have had so many pencils and fiber gels, this, that, and the other thing. I don't have a lot of hair. I don't have a lot of hair on my head, and I don't have a lot of hair in my brows. So I'm working with very little, and I am very impatient. I'm not artistic like when it comes to drawing, and I think maybe that's why I hate putting my brows on so much. I don't know, but what I like about the pomade is that it's the fastest method that I've tried, and I think I've tried them all. It's, for me personally, the thing that takes the least amount of effort. I just put a little bit in, and then I brush it through. And genuinely, I walk away saying good enough. I don't think it's great. I think I could do a better job on my brows, but I don't have that skill set at this time. So for now, this is absolutely my favorite. I'm actually almost done with this entire tub, which, if you see how little of this I put in my brows every day, it's quite an accomplishment. I actually also got one of these at Macy's. Right now, Macy's is having 10 days of glam. So they are having 50% off sales. It seems to be kind of a smattering of products. I remember in years past for 10 days of glam, it was a little bit more organized, kind of like the Ulta sale, like a short version of the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. This sale seems to be a bit all over the place, so I haven't been keeping track of it as well as I used to, but anyway, it's always worth at least checking. So now that is it. That is everything, and I hope you are having a fabulous week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.